The galaxy watched in real time as the human president stepped into the shimmering amphitheater of Helion Prime, and the moment he crossed the threshold, every camera drone pivoted as if gravity itself bent toward him. Billions were tuned in across thousands of star systems, expecting a polite renewal of the long-standing Human Alliance Treaty, maybe even some ceremonial speeches, a few awkward jokes about cultural unity, and the usual diplomatic theater. No one expected the silence. No one expected the look on his face. And absolutely no one expected what he said next. The President of the United Human Republic did not shake hands, did not smile, and did not acknowledge the ovation lights flickering across the stands. He simply stepped forward, straightened his jacket, and let his gaze sweep across the assembled 16 species. His security detail, stone-faced, armored in black formal plating, stood close behind him, a formation that looked more like a funeral procession than a diplomatic entourage. The murmurs began. Even the insectivoraks clicked their mandibles with nervous anticipation. Then the President spoke. The United Human Republic withdraws from all diplomatic negotiations. Effective immediately. The words detonated across the chamber like a shockwave. Some species gasped. The reptilian Imher hissed in offense. The floating Cerati dimmed their bioluminescent bodies in fear. A broken delegate actually dropped its ceremonial gavel, which bounced across the platform with a clatter that echoed the chaos unfolding. Humans have always been unstable, one delegate shrieked. Is this a declaration of war? Another demanded, the microphone translating her voice into a deep metallic growl. What has Earth discovered? A third whispered, but the whisper carried, amplified across the chamber. Commentators from half the galaxy scrambled to speak over each other. Camera drones zoomed in, trying to read the President's expression. If he was afraid, he didn't show it. If he was angry, he buried it under iron control. He simply turned and walked out, leaving the council to tear itself apart in speculation. The hollow broadcast cut at the exact moment he crossed the threshold, leaving billions staring at blank screens and panicked anchors trying to improvise explanations. That's not standard human procedure, one alien reporter stammered before the feed dissolved entirely. Behind sealed armored doors deep within the human delegation wing, the President finally let out the smallest exhale. Not relief, more like the kind of breath a man takes when stepping off a cliff because there's no other choice. Admiral Kira Holt was already waiting for him, arms crossed, expression sharp enough to slice hull plating. Well, she said dryly, the galaxy's going to need therapy. Agent Mara Quinn, head of human counterintelligence, snorted. Therapy? They're going to need new underwear. A young staffer named Lewis, barely 30 and already sweating through his collar, raised a trembling hand. Sir? I know this isn't the moment, but history books are going to write this as the President rage quit the galaxy. Just saying. The President gave him a stare that could have vaporized steel. Lewis shut his mouth with an audible click. The room dimmed automatically as the security lock sealed with a heavy vacuum hiss. Holoscreens flickered to life, showing scrambled intel logs, encrypted transmissions, and several alarming biometric graphs. The President took the center seat at the round table, though he didn't sit long. He was a man built for storms, not chairs. Report, he said. Quinn tapped a button and the screen revealed a looping video, an alien diplomat smiling politely during a negotiation session, except his smile was wrong. Not wrong in shape, wrong in timing, wrong in microtension, wrong in the way the facial muscles shifted just half a second too slow. A mimicry glitch so small no one would have caught it unless they were looking for it. But Quinn had been looking. There are more anomalies, she continued. Behavioral mismatches across at least 3 species. Small things. Eye focus delays. Speech cadences altered. Cultural references used incorrectly. Maybe they're just bad at jokes, Lewis muttered. Quinn ignored him. The next footage showed a human diplomat, Ambassador Reese, walking down a corridor, pausing, then tilting his head at an unnatural angle before continuing on as if nothing happened. The room went silent. The President's jaw tightened. And you're certain the data is clean? We reran it 6 times, Quinn said. It's not compression errors. It's intentional mimicry. Someone, or something, has been replacing or puppeting key figures. Holt leaned forward, her voice low and dangerous. And if even one of our diplomats has been compromised, then we can't trust any diplomatic channel. That's why, the president said quietly. We walked out. There was no drama in his tone, just the cold weight of necessity. He had known, stepping into that chamber, that the galaxy would see him as unstable, aggressive, or even treasonous. But if the alternative was handing Earth over to an enemy that wore friendly faces like masks, then public shame was a small price to pay. Quinn pulled up a map of human embassies and outposts. We've issued blackout protocols. Every ship is to seal borders and cut comms unless absolutely necessary. Embassies go into isolation mode. Anyone requesting entry gets scanned. Lewis raised a hand again. Every ship? Including the food supply convoys? Because the agricultural ministry is already screaming. Yes, every ship, Holt snapped. Lewis shrank in his chair. Great. I'll just draft the official response. Sorry for the chaos, folks, but at least your lettuce isn't secretly an alien spy. A ripple of dark humor cut through the tension. Humans coped with fear the way they always did, with sarcasm sharp enough to draw blood. But beneath the jokes was terror. Not panic. Terror. The president stepped toward a sealed metal case on the table. He pressed his palm to the lock. It scanned his biometrics, then opened. Inside lay a device no one in the room liked to look at, a neurofrequency destabilizer designed to reveal shapeshifters by forcing them out of human forms. Sir, Holt whispered, if you use that publicly, the Council may see it as an act of aggression. It's not aggression, the president said. It's truth. Before anyone could reply, an alarm beeped. Quinn checked her screen. Her face strained of color. Sir? Ambassador Reese, the one we suspected, he's missing. He broke containment. His last scan came back flagged as inconclusive. Lewis swallowed. Inconclusive as in glitched? Quinn shook her head slowly. Inconclusive as in, not human. Silence fell over the room. The president closed the case with a soft, decisive click. Prepare for the worst, he said. It has already begun. The search team found the ambassador's transport pod drifting in the darkness between Helion Prime and the human cruiser Resolute. No life signs. No heat signatures. No trace of struggle. It looked like an empty metal seed floating in the void, silent, innocent, and wrong. The recovery officers approached cautiously, weapons drawn, even though everyone knew that if the ambassador really was what they feared, small arms fire would be about as helpful as throwing harsh language. When they finally breached the pod, their helmets recorded everything. The interior was cold, too cold, like something had been sucking heat out of the walls themselves. There were faint fingerprints on the panels, but the spacing was off, as though the ambassador's hands had been slightly misaligned when he touched them. One officer noticed the slightest smear across the metallic floor, like someone had dragged their fingers, but the streak was faintly iridescent, shifting colors under the flashlight beam. Not blood. Not oil. Something else. Back in the secure briefing room, Quinn replayed the security footage in slow motion. The image showed Ambassador Reese boarding the pod, sitting stiffly, staring forward with unblinking calm. Then the feed jittered, once, then twice. His outline blurred, edges softening like wet ink bleeding across paper. For a split second his face split, shifted, revealing a glimpse of smooth, featureless flesh beneath. Then he simply stood up. Not like a man. More like something unfolding. Lewis flinched when the footage paused on the blurred, half-alien frame. Okay, he whispered. So I never liked Reese, but that's a whole new reason. The president didn't speak. He watched the mimic shape melt into the corner of the pod, passing through a ventilation seam far too narrow for a human body. The feed cut after that. No trace. No pursuit possible. Quinn exhaled shakily. Sir, we couldn't have contained him. He wasn't a diplomat anymore. He's something else. Something wearing him. Holt corrected. The room swallowed the distinction like a cold knife. In the hidden Black Ops lab aboard the cruiser Night Anchorage, the body of an earlier captured infiltrator lay suspended in a containment field. Not Ambassador Reese. This one had been caught months ago after a minor incident the government buried so deep most of the team hadn't even known it existed until yesterday. The body shifted slightly in the field, as though reacting to the presence of observers. Or mocking them. Dr. Nathan Rios, lead xenobiologist, spoke in the exhausted monotone of someone who hadn't slept in 84 hours. The mimic tissue is unstable unless anchored to a host pattern. These things don't just copy faces, they copy behavior, micro-habits, neurorhythm. They borrow a life like a jacket. Lewis swallowed. That's a horrifying jacket. Rios raised a trembling stylus. They can mimic most of the cognitive signature too. That's the worst part. With enough observation, they start predicting how a target will respond, how they'll talk, how they'll react under stress. Holt crossed her arms. Meaning they can fool damn near anyone. Rios didn't look up. Meaning you might talk to one for weeks before noticing anything wrong, unless you catch them off pattern. To be fair, Lewis muttered, that describes most of my exes. Quinn threw a pen at him. Not now. The president approached the containment field. The mimic's dormant form pulsed faintly, like a muscle remembering it once had blood. In its natural state it resembled a mass of slick, gray membrane, not quite solid, not quite liquid. Limbs half-formed. When the president stepped closer, the thing twitched and seemed to shape a crude imitation of a human jawline before dissolving again. Can they replicate anyone? The president asked quietly. Rios nodded. Anyone they observe long enough. But rank matters. Higher profile targets require more pattern data. Which means... He hesitated. Which means Reese wasn't there first. The president's silence was its own verdict. On Helion Prime, the Galactic Council was already losing its sanity. Delegates ranted on public channels, accusing humans of sabotage, deception, and psychological warfare. One reptilian counselor demanded Earth be blockaded immediately. Another insisted humans undergo compulsory mental evaluation. A third suggested replacing the entire human diplomatic corps with AI proxies to stabilize their emotional volatility. Their panic would have been amusing if it weren't so dangerous. Alien news networks ran bright red banners reading, "Humans have turned rogue, Council in crisis." Were they always this unstable? Experts say yes. Asterisk asterisk. Are humans hiding a superweapon? Top psychologists explain. The human brain is a cosmic anomaly. One Vrax reporter clicked its mandibles nervously and declared, "We warned everyone humans were unpredictable carnivores." Another added that humans' odd fondness for chaotic improvisation might indicate mass hysteria. Gotta love how fast we go from valued ally to rabid space raccoon, Lewis said, flipping through the coverage. Holt grunted. We've been called worse. But the broadcast also revealed something none of them expected. One of the loudest anti-human voices in the council, the Zalari ambassador, was subtly off. Not wrong enough for aliens to notice, but wrong enough that humans did. Her gestures were timed half a beat too early, like she was anticipating questions before they were asked. Her color shift pattern was reversed, a tiny detail only a Zalari expert would ever catch. Quinn froze the video. Sir? I think we've found another mimic. Lewis let out a low whistle. So, the galaxy thinks we're crazy because they're being puppeted by the same monsters we're trying to stop. Fantastic. The president faced the team, tension sharpening every line of his face. We can't reveal this without proof, not the kind of proof that can be dismissed as doctored footage. Holt nodded. And if we move openly, the mimics scatter. Quinn tapped her tablet. Then we don't move openly. The president looked at the biometric destabilizer case. The trap he planned earlier now had a target. Lewis raised his hand cautiously. Just checking, but whatever plan you're about to propose, it won't happen on Helion Prime during a full council broadcast, right? No one answered. Lewis groaned. Of course it will. The president turned back to the screens. Prepare everything. We force them into the light. On our terms. Quinn straightened. Sir, what will you say to the council tomorrow? The president's lips curved into the smallest, driest shadow of a smile. The truth, he said. But only the part that lures them out. The summons arrived at dawn cycle on HFY Prime, glowing across every diplomatic channel like an accusation written in neon. The Galactic Council requests the immediate presence of the human president for emergency clarification hearings. Lewis read it aloud in the briefing room and winced. Clarification hearings is such a polite way of saying show up so we can yell at you in 12 languages. Holt strapped on her sidearm and muttered. I've survived live-fire asteroid drills with better odds. Agent Quinn didn't look up from her datapad. We'll attend. But we're bringing every ounce of human paranoia with us. The president stood in silence by the viewport, watching light ripple across HFY Prime's superstructure. Thousands of windows gleamed across its surface like watchful eyes, except some of those eyes weren't alive. Some were puppet. Some were waiting. He turned. We go. And we execute the plan exactly as designed. The goal isn't to soothe them. It's to expose them. Lewis raised a hesitant hand. You mean in a dramatic, televised, historic-level crash-and-burn scenario? The president almost smiled. Almost. Exactly that. The walk to the council chamber was a gauntlet of flashing camera drones and panicked alien reporters. Translations flooded the air. Human instability threatens peace. Why did Earth abandon diplomacy? Is the president under duress? Blink twice if you are. A small, gelatinous species waved signs that read hugs not war, but even their optimistic mucus pulsed with anxiety. Holt's security team formed a tight perimeter, scanning every glare, every movement. Sir, Holt said, you'll be standing in a room with at least 3 confirmed hostiles pretending to be diplomats. 4, Quinn corrected. Maybe 5. Depends how badly the Zalari ambassador glitches today. Lewis forced a laugh. Great. Wonderful. Do we have a punch card? Do 5 mimics get us a free coffee? They entered the council hall. Silence swallowed the giant circular chamber, except for the faint hum of translation pillars. Delegates watched like predators waiting for a misstep. The Zalari ambassador flickered with a faint, unnatural shimmer around her neck gills, small, almost imperceptible. Humans noticed. No one else did. The council chair, a towering crystalline being, spoke first. President Elias Grant. You stand before this council to explain your species' reckless abandonment of diplomacy. Speak. And choose your words carefully. Lewis whispered. No pressure at all. The president walked to the central platform, every step measured. His voice carried without the need for amplification. Members of the council, humanity has made mistakes, but we have never abandoned our allies lightly. We withdrew because diplomacy relies on trust. And right now, that trust is dying. The Zalari ambassador hissed. An accusation? Humans now accuse the council itself? The president shook his head. No. I accuse no species. But I accuse someone, something, of poisoning our unity. Quinn, standing in the shadows near a pillar, flicked her wrist. The microdrones hidden throughout the chamber activated silently. They blended with the ambient holographic dust, invisible unless you looked directly through their blades. The president continued, his tone deceptively calm. Over the past few cycles, key figures across the galaxy have behaved out of character. Words slightly wrong. Expressions mismatched. Actions inconsistent with years, decades, of known patterns. The reptilian in her pounded a fist on the railing. Humans dare claim the council is compromised? Lewis muttered under his breath. Oh, if only you knew. The president leaned forward. I claim nothing. I present facts. Observable. Testable. Then, with a sharp gesture, he activated the trap. Across the chamber, the hidden scanners ignited. Not with visible light, but with a subtle shift in atmospheric frequency, a hum that made sensitive species flinch. The Zalari ambassador jerked upright, skin flickering uncontrollably. The Serati delegate dimmed suddenly, trembling. 2 other ambassadors twitched, their bodies reacting like puppets with frayed strings. The chamber erupted. What is happening? Shut down your devices! This is an attack! The chair boomed. President Grant sees this. But the president didn't move. Show them. Quinn pressed the command. Screens erupted across the chamber, projecting the biometric overlays captured in real time. Several delegates, those suspected, glitched, their outlines flickering with smooth, gray distortion beneath their disguises. Gasps tore through the hall. One alien fainted. Another vomited bioluminescent mucus. Holt's team stepped forward instinctively as the first mimic lost its composure entirely. The Zalari ambassador's body flickered, then dropped its form like a robe, revealing a smooth, faceless shape beneath. It hissed, not a biological hiss, but a static lace rasp that made the translation pillars short-circuit. Lewis squeaked. Yep. There it is. Nightmare fuel. Chaos ignited. The mimic lunged, not at the president, but at the Serati delegate beside it. Holt fired a low-velocity stunner, more symbolic than effective. The bolt struck the mimic and merely staggered it, its gray flesh rippling like disturbed water. Other mimics panicked, their disguises collapsing like peeled layers. They attacked wildly, trying to escape. Trying to silence witnesses. The president remained absolutely still as aliens screamed and scattered. The council guards hesitated, unsure who was enemy, who was infected, who might dissolve next. Quinn's voice rang through the comms. Barrier integrity holding. Lockdown engaged. The chamber sealed with a thunderous clang. No escape. One mimic lunged at the president. Holt fired again uselessly. But the president stepped aside at the last millisecond, moving with the kind of grace that came from surviving 3 assassination attempts earlier in his career. Sir! Holt shouted. He ignored the fear. He faced the mimics head-on. This, he said, voice echoing across the carnage, is why humanity walked away. Not from diplomacy, but from negotiating with puppets wearing stolen faces. Several species stopped fighting long enough to listen. Shock, horror, and realization sank in like gravity. The council chair trembled, light fracturing erratically. You knew. I suspected, the president corrected. And I couldn't risk warning you without tipping them off. Another mimic screeched and dissolved into a smear of gray liquid. The chamber fell into horrified silence. Lewis whispered, Well, that's one way to win an argument. The president finally stepped back. Now do you understand why humanity rejected diplomacy? No one answered. They understood. All at once. The aftermath of the council chamber incident spread across the galaxy faster than any war declaration ever had. News streams overflowed with shaky footage of gray, shapeless bodies convulsing on the marble floors, of delegates screaming, of the human president standing calm and unmoving while the disguises peeled away from beings everyone had trusted. By the time Earth rotated into its morning cycle, half the population already believed aliens had invaded, the other half believed the president had staged an elaborate psychological weapon, and a tiny but vocal minority insisted this was all a deepfake created by rival species jealous of human coffee. Inside the temporary secure bunker beneath Helion Prime's diplomatic sector, the human president sat at a long table covered in reports, holofeeds, and half-drunk cups of synth coffee. His inner circle looked exhausted. Holt had her sleeves rolled up, revealing scars from previous battles. Quinn's eyes were shadowed. Lewis had reached the I am too tired to panic stage and simply stared blankly at the wall. Summaries, the president said quietly. Quinn pinched the bridge of her nose. 3 confirmed mimics terminated in the chamber. 2 escaped but were wounded. 1 liquefied itself when cornered, self-destruct mechanism triggered by exposure. We've identified similar anomalies in at least 6 other species, but preliminary scans show these weren't isolated infiltrations. This was coordinated. Strategic. Planned? Holt leaned forward. Worse news, multiple council worlds have gone into emergency lockdown. Some think we unleashed a bioweapon. Others think we saved them. A few think we're trying to replace the council entirely. What do you think? The president asked. Holt hesitated. I think we just kicked the nest. Hard. Lewis raised a hand weakly. With all due respect, sir, I think the nest kicked back, built a bomb, disguised itself as a senator, and tried to stab us during a live broadcast. Quinn sighed. Lewis, go get more coffee. No, Lewis said darkly. Coffee won't save me anymore. The president exhaled slowly. And the general public? Quinn called up a hollow feed. Clips flashed past. A Cherokee elder trembling on a news broadcast, declaring, we should have listened to the humans. A Vrax general roaring for a full-scale purge of all political institutions. Riots beginning on the Zalari homeworld as citizens demanded accountability. A human late-night show featuring a comedian joking, turns out the only thing worse than a politician is a politician wearing someone else's skin. The president shut the feed off. The galaxy is unraveling. If we don't stabilize this fast, we'll have a multi-species collapse before the week ends. That was the moment the summons arrived, the one none of them expected. The Galactic Council, shaken, wounded, and missing several key members, had convened a classified emergency session. And after hours of debate, fear, and political chaos, they sent a single message to the human delegation. Request for private audience with President Elias Grant, Crisis Authority proposal. Lewis blinked. Crisis Authority? As in, they want us to take charge? Us? Humans? The species they called emotional carnivores 2 days ago? Holt rubbed her temples. They're desperate. Their leadership core is compromised. They trust their own people less than they trust us right now. Quinn nodded. We're the only ones who detected the infiltration. The only ones who acted. The only ones who have a protocol in place. Lewis muttered. So we're being rewarded for blowing up diplomacy. Amazing. The president stood. Prepare the team. I'm going. The private chamber was nothing like the grand amphitheater. It was small, dim, and cold, perfect for species who feared sunlight, warmth, and cameras. Only 5 delegates remained, the crystalline chair, the Cherokee elder, the Imher general, a Vrax representative, and a trembling aquatic diplomat who looked like they'd aged 50 years overnight. The chair spoke first. President Grant, the council requests your guidance. Lewis muttered under his breath. This is it. We've entered the Twilight Zone. The president ignored him. What kind of guidance? The Cherokee elder dimmed her bioluminescence. We propose granting you temporary command authority over a unified response force. A task force designed to identify and eradicate mimic infiltration across all known territories. The Imher general slammed a claw onto the table. We are warriors, but this fight is not one of strength. It is one of detection. Subtlety. Strategy. Your species excel at these things. Lewis whispered. We do? Holt kicked his ankle. The chair continued. This authority would extend beyond human borders. You would lead joint operations. For the duration of the crisis, Earth would be the spearpoint. A silent weight settled on the room. The president understood the implications instantly. Humans had never led the galaxy. Humans were rarely trusted enough to lead anything beyond their own alliances. This was more than authority. It was responsibility for the survival of civilization. And an enormous political risk. If we accept, the president said carefully, we could be accused of seizing power. The Vrax representative bared its fangs. Those who accuse will soon be revealed as mimics anyway. Lewis coughed. Comforting. Quinn leaned forward. Sir, if we refuse, they'll fall apart. They know it. We know it. The president looked at each alien leader. Fear lingered behind their eyes, not fear of humans, but fear of invisible enemies hiding behind familiar faces. He spoke slowly, intentionally. I will lead. But not alone. Not without oversight. Not without transparency. And not without your consent at every critical step. The aquatic diplomat shivered. You have it. The council nodded. Unanimous. But just as the president reached for the ceremonial data slate to formalize the agreement, a shape moved in the shadows behind the Vrax's representative. Quinn reacted first. Sir, down! A mimic burst from behind a pillar, dissolving its stolen form mid-leap. Holt fired, the blast hitting its center mass, but the creature absorbed the shock like liquid and surged forward. Lewis screamed something profoundly unheroic and ducked under the table. The mimic lunged for the president. But the Imher general intercepted with a roar, slamming the creature to the floor. Holt tackled it next. Quinn jammed her destabilizer patch into its shifting flesh, triggering a violent, convulsing ripple. The mimic shrieked like static being torn in half. It dissolved into nothing. Panting, Holt stepped back. They're getting bolder. The council stared at the president with new understanding, not just respect, but recognition. Humanity had been right. Humanity had acted when others hesitated. Humanity had stood alone until the truth could no longer be denied. The chair lowered its crystalline head. This war begins now. And you, President Grant, will lead us. Lewis finally crawled out from under the table. So, does this mean we're officially in charge of the galaxy? Because I barely passed galactic history in school. The president placed a hand on his shoulder. Lewis, nobody passed galactic history. They keep rewriting it. And with that, humanity stepped into a role it had never wanted, never asked for, but was uniquely prepared to shoulder. Not conquerors. Not rebels. Not victims. But defenders of truth in a galaxy full of stolen faces. HFY.